Howdy folks, and welcome to my retrospective on Bioshock, one of the most acclaimed games of its generation. We'll be going through the whole story, figuring out what makes Bioshock hold up so well 18 years after its initial release, and commenting on certain things that probably should be left at the bottom of the ocean. To do this, we'll be focusing on Bioshock's gameplay mechanics, visual aesthetics, soundscape, and of course, the narrative, to get the full picture of this classic. This video is critiquing the original game. I know there are remasters for both the first and second iterations of the franchise, yet I wanted to showcase the gravity of what 2K accomplished all the way back in 2007, because it is remarkable. There were moments while playing that I had to take a scoot back in my chair to marvel at what I was seeing. Then seamlessly my eyes would be inches from the screen trying to simply survive. Add into this mix some of the heaviest philosophy conundrums you'll think about for the next week and multiple addictive gameplay loops, you have yourself one hell of a game. This is a special script to write personally. Alongside Doom 3, Half-Life 2, and Freddy Fish: The Case of the Missing Kelp Seeds, Bioshock truly showed me the ceiling video game narratives could build towards. Even though my 14-year-old self didn't fully understand the various ideological underworks being presented, or how the time period gave weight to the characters, so many moments in Bioshock stuck with me all the way to this day. But not everything is perfect in Rapture, as you might have guessed. Apart from burning elevators, psychotic lunatics, and little girls that scream "kill him" when they see you, Bioshock has some oddities throughout its 11 hours that need to be addressed. Luckily, those blemishes are few and far between, enough where they don't detract from the overall experience. And I have one thing kindly to ask you before we start this descent. Just like my Deus Ex Human Revolution retrospective, Bioshock deals with many mature ideas about humanity, life, death, freedom, persecution, and a whole slew of other things that will trickle or burst in throughout these next hours. Please be respectful when commenting or replying to others. I admire the conversations we've had so far and look forward to reading your constructive ideas, thoughts, and opinions about all topics we covered today. Bioshock is an experience that anyone interested in video games or stories in general should play. If you haven't yet, I'm honored that we're on this trip together. And for the souls that have descended into the hellish utopia called Rapture before, we'll search for details that might make it feel like the first time. So without further ado, let's get started. Bioshock begins with our main character destined for some unknown place. With him is a present presumably for his parents, and we get our only lines from Jack.
They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things.
The plane has a major mechanical fault and crashes into the Atlantic Ocean, and I was quickly blown away by how gorgeous this game is. Even though some of the texture work might feel outdated, the art style completely holds up with a lot of help from the lighting and aesthetic designs. Fortunately for us, the plane crashed right near a gigantic lighthouse, which Jack tries to reach. Bioshock is also filled with small details that we'll be analyzing. I thought the broken light along the stairs made the structure even more foreboding, and watching the tail of the plane fully submerge was neat. See what I mean about foreboding? Entering this monolithic structure, you can already tell something is wrong. We see some gigantic statue with the words, "No gods or kings, only man," and immediately get the sense for the game's design within the first minute. This is no random structure, and making our way downstairs reveals not only placards espousing science, industry, and art, but also holds some sort of transport vehicle. When in Rome, I guess. Now, I don't think playing this introduction in its entirety would be great pacing for the video, but it effectively makes the player question the situation they're getting themselves into. Chaos and order are two big themes throughout the game, and we're seeing both on display. Plus, I chuckled that before the creator of this place speaks, you get an advertisement.
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers.
For people that played BioShock back when it was released, I'm 99% sure that Ryan's delivery of these lines, accompanied by the visuals we're seeing, are etched into your conscious forever. There is so much to dissect within these first minutes. The juxtaposition of these gigantic Art Deco buildings all the way underwater is just magnificent, showing the industrialization and production needed to create this world. Then you have the somewhat surreal of the whale swimming between the skyscrapers. Plus all these different businesses, theaters, shops, advertising on the walls made it feel like Times Square. And if we're traveling by bathysphere, well, it's free advertising. We intercept a radio message from two men about our arrival, and one mentions to be quick since splicers are coming, whatever the hell that means.
Sphere's coming up now! Johnny, security's banging off all over. Get a move on!
I'm really glad I didn't turn off the game here when I was a teen, even though this scared the living you-know-what out of me, and it still does. Whatever notions you had about this place just got gutted, pardon the pun. Apart from the violence, what makes this scene so noteworthy is the darkness allowing the player's imagination to run wild, causing even more tension, and this won't be the last time. Then this splicer, as they're called, talks to us like a human.
Is it someone new?
That might be even more unnerving than it trying to make its way into the bathysphere. A man called Atlas contacts us through the radio and tells us that we need to get the hell out of there.
I don't know how you survived that plane crash, but I've never been one to question Providence. I'm Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive. Now keep on moving. We're gonna have to get you to higher ground.
BioShock does a fantastic job with its visual storytelling. Beyond this crazy splicer, there was some sort of demonstration down here before, and the feeling of societal collapse was palpable. We continue on, and I love this detail of being in the dark, then having the security system bring to light this treacherous creature. And this won't be the last time the spotlight is used. I also had to laugh at Atlas suggesting we find a crowbar, which I assume is a Half-Life reference. We don't get a Gordon Freeman special, but we do get this trusty wrench, that I believe there was an achievement for completing the full game only using the wrench, but maybe I'm misremembering. Anyways, with our wrench, we get our first combat with a splicer, and I have to say, the wrench when it's upgraded is awesome. The wrench like this is not. There's no oomph to the hit, except for when you kill the enemy and their physics reverts to the ragdoll. We'll talk more about the combat later once we have a couple of weapons, but the interaction between players' attacks and enemy reactions will be noted multiple times. Looking around this one room, I couldn't believe how beautiful the artwork was. I don't know how they did this for this time, but some of the posters seem like they were made yesterday in Unreal Engine. If you've watched my other videos, you know I go crazy for interior designs, and BioShock might have been the catalyst for my disposition. We hear a prompt about splicing your genetic code, and I had to laugh that after witnessing a splicer trying to kill us, our character, without prompt, injects himself with whatever this stuff is. Atlas informs us that our genetic code is being rewritten, and we pass out.
Just hold on and everything will be fine.
Coming back to consciousness, we're greeted by two splicers talking about us having Adam, whatever that is, but they're interrupted by a Big Daddy and scurry off. This is a fantastic way of introducing various elements to the player without feeling like a tutorial, which most games back then had. Especially hearing this little girl talk about seeing light coming from us and that we'll be an angel soon is haunting. And again, if you're not questioning what the hell happened to Rapture, then you're not paying attention. Luckily, getting away with these encounters, we're back on our feet and have powers. Cool. But for as cool as having lightning in your hands is, I was pretty surprised that you couldn't hold your wrench and have your plasmid out. I'd love to hear what you thought of this mechanic. We unlock the door by using our plasmid power and get this great set piece of the plane's tail we saw sinking finally making its way to the bottom of the ocean. Now, I think we all know that's not how water pressure works, and that Jack would have been imploded into a red mist, but that's neither here or there. Atlas gives us the advice to use a combo move, zap him and smash him, which works literally for every enemy throughout the whole game. It is very satisfying to pull this combo off, and I think it goes back to the ragdoll effect of one-shotting splicers, rather than hitting them 3 or 4 times without any physical reaction.
I can control myself! I can!
Again, these moments of seeing, not just being told Rapture is falling apart, are iconic. If you thought the splicer from the beginning was feral, these are people, genetically and mentally fucked up people, but still people, so remember that. And all with the backdrop of these utopian ideas which work on so many levels. You can preach all you want about community, independence, creativity, but those are ideals. Getting them in place and functioning within your civil society is another ballgame, which BioShock does an excellent job at showcasing. Atlas tells us that he is a family trapped in Neptune's bounty, and that if we could make our way there to help them, we might find a way out of Rapture before getting torn to bits. Can we marvel for a second at the shadows? Folks, this is 2007, and there are games out now that don't have this type of lighting. Not only that, but the masks on these splicers trying to hide their altered faces have this macabre element to it. And there are reasons for it. There are actual reasons for everything in this universe, and I think that's what stuck with me the most after this playthrough. Rapture is fully fleshed out. If you question why something is, there's an audio tape for that, or an environmental narrative that explains it. An example is why women splicers are obsessed with babies, which we'll get to much later. I usually say good games feel like a lived-in world, but BioShock 1-ups that by showing us a dying world, with many details for the player to discover on their own, and for some things to be left for the player's imagination. Another fantastic addition to the world building is how splicers interact with each other. Stealth is not even talked about apart from one perk that makes sneak damage bonus a thing for the wrench, but if you crouch around, there are a lot of interesting interactions that I just missed the first time playing. I love this part of the couple fighting, it felt real, and we haven't even gotten to the voice acting. I kid you not, some of the audio tapes you'll find of important characters you hear are exquisitely managed. From haunting to revolting, somber to flirtatious, the whole gambit is run with almost perfection.
I'm out and you're stuck in Hephaestus. Working. Imagine the surprise. I guess I'll have another drink. Here's a toast to Diane McClintock. Silliest girl in Rapture.
Now, that does not mean the soundscape gets a pass, and I do have to ask if anyone had this problem with older games, since I've been coming up on it multiple times now. I've tried stereo, I've tried mono, I've tried surround sound. BioShock has a lot of moments where the audio just cuts out if you're not looking in a specific direction, and there were some important audio cues that just didn't work. Most notably not hearing being attacked from behind or the shotgun sounding like it was 20 feet away. If anyone has any thoughts on this, please let me know. Thank you. Speaking of audio, we find a recording of Diane, a partygoer who experiences some sort of attack during the New Year's festivities we see on display. Not only does this give a bit more context to what has happened here, but it's not the last time we'll hear from Diane.
Silly enough to fall in love with Andrew Ryan. Silly enough. What happened? I'm bleeding. Oh God. What's happening?
Even though most of the level designs are small, the developers did a good job at using set pieces or checkpoints to either add new enemies to previously explored places, or setting up ambushes with turrets. For this part, I liked how it felt organic that the player learns the environmental aspects of using plasmids. Once you get access to the others, you'll immediately think about how to use the environment as well, which made the combat feel a bit more dynamic. Quick note again is the advertisements. They aren't there just for your aesthetic pleasing, they're part of the world. Seeing the poster for the AccuVox, the tape player we're getting all these audio files from, was a chef's kiss to this section. The next room we enter is the theater, and get to see this little sister doing her work. Atlas exclaims that even though she might look like a little girl, they are far from human. He further explains that little sisters hold the atom, the substance which gives people power, so they're a sought-after commodity, which we get to witness up close. This visual sequence is one of the best in the game, not only showcasing the depravity that splicers will go for a little atom, but the sheer power of the Big Daddy. I tend to forget to mention the music during these retrospectives, so let me say it quick and plainly. Bioshock's score utilizes so much from its time period and elevates it with strings. It's amazing. If you've played System Shock 1 or 2, you'll remember Shodan messing with the player in a bunch of ways depending on their actions. Bioshock isn't quite like that, with more of a streamlined response to linear player action. What I mean is that the player doesn't choose his path, it's chosen for them. Yet there is that sense of the house being against us, and this is one of those moments.
It's Ryan! Goddamn Andrew Ryan! He's found us! Damn it! He shut off access to Neptune. There's another way to get there. Head to medical. What are you waiting for? Go!
These standalone moments were strewn around the game, but never felt like they got repetitive. Interestingly enough, the more powers you get, albeit odd ones, the more fun these defense moments were. Sadly, I didn't go wild with plasmids, but I've seen some fun stuff using decoy dummies and cyclone traps. Let me know if you didn't play the traditional shock, wrench, and shotgun method. We defend ourselves and have to make a detour now that the way to Neptune's bounty is blocked, which allows us our first real interaction with the creator of this world, Andrew Ryan.
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches sent to you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who could be slapped around by government muscle. And with that, farewell, or das Vidania, whichever.
There is so much in these couple of lines that I'm actually in awe at how good the writing is throughout this game. Ryan doesn't know who we are, whether we work for the KGB or the CIA, both despised by Ryan. We get a better understanding of what Ryan dislikes rather than what he wants out of his creation, which makes me think of this adage, if you try your hardest not to become something, you'll walk right into it. Also, I chuckled at him saying Das Vidanya. It's a neat touch at his notion of who we are. And on top of being locked up in this 1984 television setup, we get the startling visual of the splicers trying to break in. Atlas unlocks the door and we enter the medical pavilion.
You've met Andrew Ryan, the bloody king of Rapture.
It's not just the level designs that make Rapture feel real, but the functionality of them. Ryan wanted to make a utopia of sorts, and honestly, they got everything on paper. Medical facilities, theatrical stages, fishing wharfs. So what the hell led to the descent into madness?
The parasite hates three things: free markets, free will, and free men.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Also, I enjoyed that the loudspeaker announcements used the word parasite, since I'm used to being called similar things by my AI dominatrix. I love you, Shodan. The pacing has been great so far, until we get to this little shit. Hacking is one of those blemishes I was talking about in the beginning, and I cannot believe how badly it held up. It's not the minigame itself that sort of was enjoyable maybe the first 2 or 3 times. It's having to hack every machine within the same minigame for 12 hours that infuriated me, and I play RuneScape. Even with the perks further down the road to help, there should have been a simpler, less time-oriented way of going about hacking vending machines or robots. It's not like you don't want to do it either. Hacking vending machines will lower prices, which drastically help the player in the start of the game with ammo scarcity and health management. Then later on, hacking rooms so they're defending you was not only strategic, but rewarding. However, spending a minute on each hack taking you away from the gameplay itself was a strange call, and even the better perks don't necessarily speed up the process. We find the next audio tape from Diane talking about surviving the attack on New Year's, but feeling dismayed that Andrew Ryan himself hadn't visited her. I guess they were having some sort of fling. She does note that Dr. Steinman was very attentive to her, which plays into this character grasping for attention after feeling so lonely during New Year's. Another audio tape we find is from Steinman himself talking about Adam, the substance we injected ourselves with carefree, and from the sounds of it, screwing with our genetic code might have had some unforeseen consequences.
Yes, we could lop a boil here and shave down a beak there, but could we really change anything? No. But Adam gives us the means to do it. And Ryan
frees us from the phony ethics that held us back. Change your look, change your sex, change your race. It's yours to change. Nobody else's.
It is such an interesting thought Steinman is conveying here. Adam could fundamentally change who you are as a person, which every person has the right to their own self-determination if it doesn't hurt others. The problem with this and almost everything else in Rapture is that it is not self-determination, but conducted by unchecked people in power. There's a Soviet joke that I chuckle at where the teacher asks his students, "What is capitalism?" A student responds, "Capitalism is where a man exploits another man." The teacher says, "Good," then asks, "What is communism?" And another student shouts, "The opposite." The veil is slowly being lifted on Rapture's demise. The ideological blank canvas is being tested by the people in power and its subordinates. It's ironic since it seems like all the artists, scientists, engineers came to Rapture for the utopian ideals of self-determination, but then played the fiddle somehow to authoritarian and libertarian ideals. Okay, enough philosophy for now. The security system is all foobarred, so Atlas tasks us with disengaging the lock so we can use the bathysphere to Neptune's bounty, which sounds easier than it was. So with the system fully locked, we'll have to use Diamond's keycard for access, and there's something so beautifully video gamey about access keycards. We get our second weapon, the machine gun, and I love the fact that it was a variation of the Thompson, a World War II gun heavily used by American forces, but most notably visualized by mobsters of the late 20s and 30s. We test out our new weapon and continue on with a weird experience. There are some apparitions or ghost-like sequences that fog the player's sight for a short time with some audio. It has to be the past, but how are we seeing it? We don't have time to think about that though, since Diamond sets the bar pretty high for being absolutely insane.
The daft bastard set up shop in the surgery wing. You want to find him? Just follow the blood.
This was an awesome area to explore. Not only was it a lot more wide open than the previous portions, but there was a ton of environmental storytelling and enough audio records to last 10 minutes. Most notable out of them was hearing someone called Tenenbaum who had survived a concentration camp at the age of 16.
German doctor, he make experiment. Sometimes he makes scientific error. I tell him of this error, and this make him angry. But then he asks, how can a child know such a thing? I tell him sometimes I just know. He screams at me, then why tell me? Well, I said, if you are going to do such things, at least you should do them properly.
We'll find out more about her later, but this was what I was talking about when I mentioned the time period being utilized in a heavy but realistic way. If you just experienced World War II, expansion of world powers, the atrocities of genocide and corruption of power, no wonder people flock to Rapture. Somewhere foreign to any human and maybe a new start. I think it adds to the ambiance of Rapture and quiets questions like, who would choose to go there? Jack continues on and we find not only perks for utilities like hacking or security systems, but also the flame plasmid, which has a gnarly introduction.
This is our place! Ours!
I think we would be here all day if I delved into each character we hear on the audio tapes, so this will be the last one for now. But I wanted to highlight how important voice acting and the audio are to a game's story. We can hear McDonough, some sort of chief engineer for Rapture, lamenting over not being listened to by Andrew Ryan about the pipes. It's such a small thing, but almost all these world-building moments are small and add up quickly.
Pipes freeze, pipes burst. Then Rapture leaks. Now, I realise you're a posh sort of geezer, and frankly, I don't give a toss if you piss or go fishing. But once Rapture starts leaking, the old girl's never gonna stop. And then I'll be sure to tell Ryan he's got you to thank.
We get another iconic moment grabbing the shotgun. Even 18 years later, this scared the crap out of me. The one downside was the shotgun's audio was absolutely bungled. If there's a fix for this or it's a known issue, egg on my face, but I play the game as it comes out on the Steam box. No, not the actual Steam box, a box of Steam, never mind. I don't remember reading a lot about how the developers utilized lighting, so that's why I've been trying to emphasize this point. It goes back to letting the player's imagination do some of the horror lifting rather than the game itself, which I think is a much more visceral experience. Exploring always brought something to the player, whether that was specialized perks, more items, or just an audio tape or two. It never felt bad to go the extra step finding secrets around each level. Another major character we hear about through the audio tapes is Suchong, another scientist similar to Tenenbaum who developed the plasmids we have at our disposal today.
We've codenamed the Lot 44 Enrage because of its tendency to... Nurse? Nurse!
There's one tape we can hear him experimenting with the enraged plasmid on some poor soul, and it is so well done, if not very disturbing. The game really gives you a lot of powers early on. We get telekinesis, ignition, but I honestly use shock for the majority of the game since that 1-2 punch with the wrench was just too satisfying. With telekinesis and our genetic makeup, we confront Steinman who holds himself up in surgery. Again, the audio tapes do such a wonderful job at showcasing the descent into madness, and I'm pretty sure it's because everyone is splicing their genetic code with Adam, but that's just a hunch.
Today I had lunch with the goddess. Steinman, she said. I'm here to free you from the tyranny of the commonplace. I'm here to show you a new kind of beauty. I asked her, what do you mean, goddess? Symmetry, dear Steinman. It's time we did something about symmetry.
Jack finally gets to Steinman, who is still operating on some poor splicer. And if you didn't think things were messed up, well, there's no obfuscating it now.
But they always turn out wrong! That one, too fat! This one, too tall! This one, too symmetrical! And now, what's this goddess? An intruder! He's ugly!
The boss fights in Bioshock are nothing to write home about, and more err on the caution of having enough bullets to bring them down than actual mechanics. There are exceptions, but when you see standing water and a humanoid enemy type, you're gonna shock them. With Steinman dead, Atlas reminds us that now we can access Neptune's bounty, which was all the way back at the start of the level. Unfortunately, our way back to the pavilion is blocked and we take a detour. Our character gets these weird flashes, but there isn't enough time to think about it since we hear a little sister screaming and see that her big daddy was incapacitated. We meet Tenenbaum, who protects the little sister from a splicer, but Atlas has some genuine retorts for her after she asked if we had a heart.
Bitte do not hurt her! Have you no heart?
Aye, that's a pretty sermon coming from the ghoul who cooked up them creatures in the first place. Took fine little girls and turned them into that, didn't you?
Apparently she was the one that made these little girls into what they are today, and it gets a lot more nefarious later on. For now, we have a choice. Save the little sister with some sort of plasmid Tenenbaum has developed and get less Adam, or kill them and get a ton of it. Now, this is where playing the game previously sort of took a toll, since I knew what happens when we killed them as opposed to saving them. But for the story's sake, we're doing a good run today.
No! 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 Thank you, mister.
There is something about this music while freeing the child from its Adam that truly stuck with me. I think it was the fact that even in the deepest and darkest places, there could still be hope. We see our first plasmid upgrade machine, using Adam to further genetically vary ourselves, but we also get another audio tape from Steinman, or less crazy Steinman. He exclaims about the potentials of the Little Sisters, describing them as factories for Adam, and that they use stem cells to regenerate their bodies, which is fascinating. But then he mentions a symbiotic relationship with the slug, and I have more questions than answers.
If you harvest the slug, the host will die. So you see, it's not like killing, Tenenbaum said. It's more like removing a terminal patient from life support.
I guess the slug infects the children to produce Adam, but there hadn't been a way to exorcise the slug, as the game dubs it, without killing the child, until Tenenbaum found whatever plasmid she gave us. Yeah, I didn't understand any of this when I first played the game. We get our first upgrades, and I was pretty happy with how many plasmid perks and powers there were, even if, as I said before, I was a shock and wrench kind of guy. With those upgrades, we get our first Big Daddy fight, which was awesome. If the player did their due diligence and hacked every machine gun and rocket launcher, the fight was a breeze. Plus, another small gameplay mechanic I truly enjoyed were the ammo types. You really wanted to save the special bullets for occasions like these, since the armor-piercing rounds, even on the pistol, were fantastic against Big Daddies. Then combining that with electric buck from the shotgun opened up a lot more variety in the player's actions. We survive our first encounter with the Protector and make our way back to the security pavilion, now with Diamond's keycard in hand. We arrive at Port Neptune, and why did I think this place would be any saner than what we just witnessed in Medical? Again, the visual storytelling is unparalleled. Whether it's the smuggler hoisted up, the signs of a huge fight, or the fact that we're in an industrial fishing section of Rapture, everything felt true, tangible, real. And that's still with the notion of us being on the sea floor. We encounter our next variation of a splicer, and I kind of enjoyed that the game doesn't just throw it down your face like, this one's a normal splicer, this one's the grenade splicer, this one's the teleporting splicer. They just naturally let the player figure it out. I thought it was cool. Neptune's bounty was an interesting level in terms of progressing the story as well. The loudspeakers are still playing propaganda, and a lot of it is to do with smuggling. I guess Ryan didn't want a free market. Obviously, there were huge problems from Ryan's standpoint, and we hear about another character, Fontaine. Actually, we hear more from Sullivan, Ryan's right-hand muscle, trying to figure out how to deal with Fontaine, a charismatic leader of the lower section of Rapture that sounds like a bigger thorn in Ryan's side than anyone else so far.
Ask me personally to make this clear to you. You give us Fontaine, and this whole filthy ring of his, and you'll be knocking back pints up at the Fighting McDonough's. Prefer to play the mule. We'll treat you like a mule. Give him a taste, Patrick. What's that? Change of heart, Timmy? Timmy! Ready to talk now?
Go on, Sullivan. Go on and do your dirty. Whatever Ryan thinks he can do to me, Fontaine can do double!
We save another little sister, and Tenenbaum radios us saying there's a package waiting at the upgrade station, which I thought was a nice touch. Yes, it might take some time for the little ones to harvest Adam, but they'll grab it eventually. Continuing on, we meet Peach Wilkins, who has blocked the passage to Atlas's family and will only open up if we take photos of splicers. We'll need to find a specific camera he talks about, and yeah, this one seemed a bit weird to me and a lot more tutorial oriented than anything else. I did like the mechanic of taking photos of enemies to get quote-unquote research, as the game describes it. It wasn't terribly important, but getting bonus damage never hurts. The question of what happened to Rapture or how it got to this point was always on my mind. And as we find more clues throughout the levels, the plot thickens.
Something must be done about Fontaine. While I was buying buildings and fish futures, he was cornering the market on genotypes and nucleotide sequences. Rapture is transforming before my eyes.
Ryan and Fontaine were adversaries, but Ryan didn't know it yet until it might have been too late. Hearing Ryan speak about Fontaine in an almost admiration, regardless of Fontaine trying to usurp Ryan, is such an interesting development. Ryan built Rapture for the individual to express themselves without constraint, and Fontaine was putting Ryan's exact ideology to the test. We also get more backstory on the Little Sisters in Tenenbaum. Some of the fishermen from the wharf had found these sea slugs that repaired wounds sustained on the job. Tenenbaum exclaims over the audio tape that this might change everything, and I could only imagine the spectrum of thoughts emanating from her with the possibility of regeneration. Plus, these must be the slugs Steinman was talking about, which is disturbing thinking they were put into these little girls somehow. To add on to that, we can find another audio tape that confirms that the scientists like Tenenbaum and Suchong were actively kidnapping children. No wonder some of the female splicers are obsessed with baby-related things. They were probably the parents trying to find their kids.
We don't know what has happened to you. Ryan's men have taken you away and said you are needed to save Rapture. Who needs a child to save a city? But I see these little girls crawling out of these vents, and I only wonder if you might one day crawl out of this vent and find this note.
Anyways, we continue through Neptune's bounty and grab the camera for research purposes and get even more insight onto the battle brewing in Rapture. Ryan isn't necessarily angry over Fontaine's ability to his freedom, but what the smugglers are doing jeopardizes Rapture itself, since he feels smuggling leads to the very parasites from the surface he tried to escape. We don't know everything that they were trying to smuggle in, but one of the bigger items were Bibles, and in a place that literally in their promotional content devalues the church, that type of ideology has no place. I think Ryan's vision of Rapture was a utopia that could not change, when in reality the freedoms of individuality lend themselves to whatever happens. We can hear him debate implementing the death penalty, saying action must be done, which absolutely goes against what he stood for in the first place, the authoritarian government going against the people. Maybe he's seeing the cracks in the framework. Even better is that down in Fontaine territory, Ryan tries to influence the people with the very tactics of governments he also despised, making things like Ryan's Club when in reality no one cared for him, but for Fontaine, who gives to the poor and protects the fishermen in various ways, that resonates. With the research camera in our possession, we get back to Peaches, who freaks out on us trying to bring weapons into his domain. We get stripped of everything, which wasn't the worst thing since we still had plasmids and our wrench. I think it added to the tension since the player was so used to having a full arsenal. And again, boss fights in Bioshock aren't bad, they're just not great. Defeating Peaches, we get our first chance at upgrading guns. Not only did I enjoy upgrading it, but also how it was Fontaine Industries producing the weapons upgrades. This guy who was running a smuggling ring had somehow positioned himself into producing weapons and being for the people. But the last audio tape from Peaches describing working under Fontaine, this guy was pretty cutthroat.
Fontaine's putting the screws on us, and double. He's squeezing us out of 80 points of our cut with the threat of turning us into Ryan if we don't play ball. Son of a bitch. Sammy G comes and tells me he's thinking of going to the constable. And the next day, Sammy G was found in a sack in a salt pond. We got no choice here. We stay on Fontaine's crew and we're gonna catch the gallows. We take powder, and we end up like Sammy G. Oh, there's gotta be another way.
We get to Atlas's family in the submarine, but of course things don't go as planned. Atlas and the sub get attacked by a slew of splicers, and I'm assuming that Ryan can sort of control these genetic alterations. Jack fights his way to them, but we're not in time and see the sub explode. Ryan asks who we are again since we're no secret agent, and I'm also starting to question Jack's ability to pump gene splicing material into him and be a general badass. Atlas somehow survived the ordeal and tells us to go to Arcadia, which has a bathysphere that directly goes to Andrew Ryan. I guess he just wants us to kill him now, which is okay, but like, is this our fight?
Moira. Patrick. Ain't that just like Ryan? Wait until we're almost out, and then he pulls the string. We'll find the bastard. We'll find him, and we'll tear his heart out!
But before we even think about taking down the big boss, we're going through Arcadia, and just like System Shock, we have our green space in a place where green shouldn't show. Arcadia was an awesome level for the same reasons as the previous ones. There is a tangible reason why it is here, with a functionality and purpose that adds on to the world building with style and elegance. This was not only how Rapture produced oxygen, but also functioned as the farmer's market. Maybe your town has one every Saturday. They're really cool, go to it. All of these concepts, like a full medical pavilion with everything you could possibly need, a large wharf with fish aplenty, and now this garden of trees and farms makes sense. This is the utopian dream of having everything produced and circulated for the people working. However, man is not perfect, far from it, and we continue to see how unrestrained power takes a toll. A perfect example of this is finding the audio tape of Tenenbaum's discovery that the sea slugs that produce Adam would make even more with a host, meaning that she knew exactly that taking the little girls would be condemning them to a parasite, an actual one this time. It's sickening and disturbing, especially coming from someone who survived a concentration camp. We also get from this that Tenenbaum and Fontaine had been working together, and that makes sense since Andrew Ryan said that Fontaine was more interested in genetic manipulation than creating free markets. More splicer variations appear, and they're part of some cult which I guess got cut from the game, or at least that's what I read afterwards. Also, how did that photo get a C rating? That was like my best shot. After exploring through Arcadia for a bit, we end up at the Metro to take us to Ryan, but of course he has something up his sleeve. Atlas has an idea to team up with the botanists that helped create Arcadia, but we'll need a couple of items before she lets us into her lab. We get our next Diane audio tape, and I was just blown away that they kept her narrative throughout the game. It was such an amazing way of storytelling through another that most developers I think would shy away from. She encapsulates what a typical Rapture person would be thinking about the events before 1959, and after, while also being somewhat close to Ryan himself.
I can't believe how much things have changed since I left Dr. Steinman's office. It's like I don't even recognize Rapture no more.
She knows something bad is going on when Ryan is rounding up random people and either detaining them or murdering them. But through the audio she mentions Atlas's name, and I was pretty confused since wasn't it Fontaine who was conducting all these subversions? Regardless, we got the stuff for Langford and enter her laboratory. Unfortunately, again, Ryan is one step ahead of us.
Julie, we made a business deal, you and I, did we not? Money changed hands. Let me read to you from the agreement. Section 3, subsection 4.
Mr. Ryan.
Ryan Industries maintains exclusive rights to the creation, use, and exploitation of the Lazarus Vector. Ownership is civilization.
Wait! No! Please!
Without it, we're back in the swamp.
Well, I'm surprised it wasn't 0451. We pick up the Langford's audio tape about how to cure whatever the hell Ryan has done to the place, and we fetch out more things. I was more excited about traversing the level and getting more of the backstory than I was with what seemed to be the concept for the gameplay loop. Go to an exit, find out the exit is blocked, walk through the level for an item, deliver the item, exit the level. It's not terrible, but it is felt. And I think later on the developers tried to switch it up with some varied results. Now, there are way too many audio tapes to keep going to, so I'd love to know some of your favorites if I missed them, or even parts that you thought were iconic that I've glossed over. One neat detail is how the splicers react to being set on fire. They'll immediately bypass the player and try to get to any water source. They'll also do this with health machines too, and it adds to that dreadful feeling that these are people just tormented by addiction. With the items on us, we get introduced to the crafting mechanic, which I thought was neither here nor there. I liked the concept, but I never specifically looked for the items to craft different ammos or traps. Getting back to Langford's room, we get another visual masterwork of a splicer searching her corpse for Adam. Even though you'll be retracing your steps a lot throughout the game, the developers understood this and changed up things like turrets, enemy placements, and moments like these that continue that sense of Rapture being alive. We have this pretty epic defense while the antitoxin is being spread throughout Arcadia. These were interesting portions because it really took all the player's skill having to use multiple plasmids, perks, and weapons, and I never felt like I was fully relying on one. The defend position scenarios were probably my favorite for those reasons. The antitoxin has been distributed throughout Arcadia and we're off to see the man himself, Andrew Ryan. Oh wait, nope, another sidetrack.
That's better. Atlas Ryan. Atlas Ryan. Da 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 da. Time was, you could get something decent on the radio.
Honestly, I think they shouldn't have had it so theatrical, pardon the pun, and just let Jack wander into Cohen's lair, but that's just me. Don't get me wrong, this place is a visual masterpiece and hosts some wild moments. Sander Cohen has stopped the bathysphere from working and has jammed the radio, so it's just us two. Cohen asks us to participate in his macabre off-Broadway theater show. This was one of the most disturbing portions of the game for myself, yet I love it with every inch of my heart. Cohen is an artist with a sense of grandeur larger than some Hollywood stars. Apart from Cohen thinking he is a star, his disdain for other artists is wild, and I found it darkly hilarious that while Rapture descended into madness, these people were still trying to figure out what their next hit musical might be.
Regarding your review of Anna Culpepper's latest musical Insult, of all the worthy artists in Rapture, why you continue to devote column inches to this musical gremlin is beyond my imagination. Where she is not derivative, she's boring. Where she's not boring, she's obvious. Where she's not obvious, she's dangerous.
But that's why Fort Frolic, great name by the way, still holds up even more to this day. The artists can think they are the most important thing on the planet, yet in reality they're stuck 10,000 leagues under the sea, doomed to play the same notes for their lifetime, or until their piano blows up.
Oh God, you sick fuck, let me out of there!
Come down now, little more. Life, death. The burden of the artist is to capture.
Cohen has tasked us to kill 4 of his disciples, or artists that he just hates. Either way, he wants us not only to do that, but take pictures of them to place on his collage. The elation in Cohen's voice when we procure the photos is unmatched. Then when he thinks we've slighted him, the madness that emanates from his voice is profoundly scary.
That's 3 of 4. What's that look? You don't like it, do you? I don't need to be judged by you, by anyone. Screw you! Screw all you fucking doubters! Here's what I say to all of you!
It's then accompanied by another fantastic defense portion that has you fighting off waves of splicers to Tchaikovsky's Waltz of the Flowers, which even in the name has the reference to the Houdini splicers leaving behind flowers as they teleport around. They were fucking cooking, folks.
Smile! Smile!
We finally complete the collage, and surprisingly Cohen makes a grand appearance. I remember this when I first played, thinking how interesting it was that he chose to come out of the shadows, even in the event of us attacking him. I guess he wanted to see the masterpiece, even though we created it, which might be a dig on certain artists. Anyways, he does let us leave Fort Frolic with a gift, and I'm assuming just continues creating until he gets bored or dies. Yep, that's the artist. Cohen also shuts down the radio jammer so Atlas gets back into contact with us and keeps saying, "Would you kindly go after Ryan?" Like, dude, you don't need to be so polite with us. We just murdered our way through countless splicers and hacks in order to get to this moment. But I didn't have time to think about that for too long, since arriving at Hephaestus was a pretty spectacular moment. Another sick reference, bro, is that Hephaestus was the Greek god of blacksmiths, metalworking, building, you name it. Andrew Ryan took a lot of pages from older ideologies and religions, which I thought was kind of ironic, since he wanted to shape the world devoid of the surface life. I think what I enjoyed most about this level was seeing how the hell they actually built Rapture. I don't need blueprints or schematics, but a foundry at the base of this place made it seem plausible. Cough cough, video game plausible, cough cough. We get some audio tapes from an Australian that seems to be part of the KGB. This might be why Ryan thought we were another agent sent after him, since Kybers talks about sneaking into Ryan Industries and sabotaging the whole place. But before we get more of that plot point, we have made it to Ryan's office.
A worm looks up and sees the face of God. But look around. It's a regular convention of worms in here. They all had mothers, fathers, people who loved them. They got married, fucked their wives. What makes you think you're any different? I haven't chosen the spot for you on the wall yet. Let me know if you have a preference.
Well, that confirms why Ryan is so frickin' paranoid. Seeing the dissenters or saboteurs lining the entrance to his office is an obvious HR call, but does send a strong message. We also get a lot more information on the uprising or whatever happened in 1959. There was a revolt from the lower sections, and Ryan was too blinded by his own ambitions to see the writing on the wall. Plus, he lost all his ideological clout when he went on an authoritarian purge of the city itself. He thinks Rapture is coming back to life, but he hasn't stepped foot out of his office, and so far what we've seen is pretty egregious, to say the least. Before we get to the office, we'll need to disable the core at the center of Ryan Industries. This probably will have lots of ramifications, but it's the only way of reaching Ryan. We get more information about the rioting. Seems like both Fontaine and Ryan facilitated both populaces to take on Adam and Splicing, making them turn on each other, which didn't bode well for all the work that needed to be done to maintain this place. Think about it, if Ryan didn't allow parts and other things from the surface, it meant everything had to be produced in Rapture. But if you didn't have a workforce, then how the hell are you repairing stuff? The short answer is, you don't. Searching through Ryan Industries for some way to disable the core and unlock Ryan's office, we discover an EMP. Yeah, an EMP that the Australian agent had tried to make but was found out before finishing it. We do our normal search for ingredients to continue. Throughout this time, Ryan chirps over the radio in almost tone of unfairness that we've happened on Rapture through this plane crash and have caused so much destruction.
A man builds a city at the bottom of the sea. That's a marvel. Another man happens to be on a plane that crash lands on the same city in the middle of the ocean. Why, that sounds more like a miracle.
I have to say I was astonished by the amount of hacking I was doing throughout the game. It felt like half of my footage was just the hacking game, and it makes me a bit sad since I felt like the pacing would have been so much better if we just got an automatic hack that wasn't the tool. But would you kindly tell me your thoughts on that? Wait, why did I say would you kindly? With the EMP bomb completed and somehow strapped to our back, we head to the core and turn it on. It has the effect we planned for, and now that Ryan was truly in our grasp, we had to take the opportunity.
What did Atlas offer you? A piece of my plundered city? Mark my words, your only reward will be a knife in the back.
Let's give credit to the level designers and artists that consistently made Rapture feel put together and each level being unique. Plus, this came out a year before Fallout 3, so...
Even in the Book of Lies, sometimes you find truth. There is indeed a season for all things. And now that I see you flesh to flesh and blood to blood, I know I cannot raise my hand against you. But know this, you are my greatest disappointment. Does your master hear me? Atlas, you can kill me, but you will never have my city. My strength is not in steel and fire. That is what the parasites will never understand. A season for all things. A time to live and a time to die. A time to build and a time to destroy!
Well, there's a lot in Ryan's speech, most notably that he calls Atlas our master, but we've only known him since the start of this whole ordeal. Ryan starts a self-destruct sequence, but we've come across something that might hurt even more. We have our characters and the words "would you kindly" scrawled along the wall, with a nice little audio tape waiting for us to listen to, and one that is the most disturbing one.
Advanced deployment, Lot 111, Dr. Sir John, client Fontaine Futuristics. Baby is now a year old, weighs 58 pounds, and possesses gross musculature of a fit 19-year-old. The results are disappointing, but within expected tolerances. Did you talk to your puppy? She's very pretty.
Thank you, Papa Jean.
Break her neck for me.
What?
Break that sweet puppy's neck. No, please. Break that puppy's neck. Would you kindly?
Oh my god, we're a fucking genetically crafted sleeper cell for Fontaine. And if Atlas knows the code phrase, then he must be Fontaine. This is probably one of the greatest cutscenes in gaming, and one that I misinterpreted since I first played the game, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Ryan tells the player that he believes a true person makes choices for themselves, and a slave obeys. To demonstrate that we're a slave to Atlas, he opens his doors and asks us would we kindly kill him. Now, in my first playthrough, I thought that because Jack does not kill him immediately, but it takes multiple times to kill Ryan, that he does have free will. But then later on, it's kind of refuted, which we'll get into. So, am I right to think the second time playing for this retrospective that even though it takes 3 shots on Ryan's head, that that's not Jack's choice, just the way he does the deed? Let me know what you think.
Kill! Man! Juices! Obey!
I was not happy about the widescreen though, since it blocked the gruesome part, but oh well. We put in self-destruct override and truly see who we were working for, with this fantastic visualization of a takeover.
It's time to end this little masquerade. There ain't no Atlas, kid. Never was. Selling my line of work takes on a variety of aliases. Hell, once I was even a Chinaman for 6 months. But you've been a sport, so I guess I owe you a little honesty. The name's Frank Fontaine. I gotta say, I had a lot of business partners in my life, but you, of course, the fact that you were genetically conditioned to bark like a cocker spaniel when I said, "Would you kindly," might have had something to do with it, but still. Now, as soon as that machine finishes processing the genetic key you just fished off Ryan, I'm gonna run Rapture tits to toes. You've been a pal, but you know what they say? Never mix business with friendship. Thanks for everything, kid. Don't forget to say hi to Ryan for me.
So yeah, Atlas was Fontaine all along, and if you didn't just hear it, they switched the picture from the radio, which I sort of liked. I thought this twist was pretty exceptional the first time around, and still hit home this time because of what transpires next. Fontaine now is in control of Rapture, sending the security bots after us, but luckily we're saved by I guess our genetic sisters and wind up in Tenenbaum's lab. Yeah, this is frickin' amazing and wild at all the same time. We were grown here, made here, and yet no memories of it? And then see all these little sisters who were plucked away from their parents to be experimented on was so sad to think about. Tenenbaum explains that Fontaine made us with Suchong and her help to eventually save Fontaine from Ryan, or do exactly what we just did. Tenenbaum also explains to us that while we slept, she had undone some of the mental sleeper cell experiments that made Fontaine our master. We're not out of the woods yet, but I think "Would you kindly" is off the table. Suchong designed our mind, and we'll need to search his offices to figure out how to fully reverse Fontaine's control. Fontaine realizes that we're not his puppet anymore, and maybe he's figuring out genetic superhumans with a mission is nothing to mess around with.
Stepped on by a big daddy. Seems like Mother Goose has been playing around in your egg salad. If you won't dance to that tune, I got others. Code Yellow.
He does pull one of the strings Tenenbaum talked about by lowering our health, which dick move, but wasn't the worst thing. Also, I wanted to address the Atlas Fontaine shtick. Did Fontaine fake his own death and then re-establish himself as Atlas? Atlas definitely has more gusto to the poster and name, which movements need. I think there was an audio tape or something, but I couldn't find it while writing the script. Any ideas? I enjoyed this next section immensely, since we get to see where the riots took place between Fontaine and Ryan's forces, all with the actual citizenry of Rapture getting caught in between. Again, people in power exploit the actual people. We find a tape from Suchong talking about an antidote for mind control with the pretense that Fontaine was worried it could be done to him, so that's why he commissioned it. And off we go to our next search for more items loop. At least every level is interesting to explore, or I would be pulling my hair out by now. I don't know what was happening to the sound quality after Ryan's death, but oh boy did the glitches in Soundscape just not work half the time. I don't know if this was my personal issue or something that lots of other people experienced. It actually made me not want to use the shotgun, and it was the first time I didn't upgrade it until the end. Anyways, we were looking for items to create the antidote and have to fight through so many splicers that I was wondering where they were when Ryan was running the joint. They also don't mention it to the player, and I wonder if it's from player choices, but splicers will have immunity to elements. At least I saw this a lot with shock splicers that weren't affected by my shock, which made me have to change up my gameplay. Fontaine also tries to negotiate with us, saying Tenenbaum isn't to be trusted, how could she survive for this long, yada yada, but my dude, you double-crossed us and used us. Why wouldn't we listen to our mother after that? We make our way to Fontaine's home, and I love how he has his own elevator in this gigantic entrance, showcasing that he and Ryan were not so different in their lavish lifestyles. There is an interesting audio tape from Fontaine himself that we can find called Sad Saps, explaining how the vacuum of human decency led him to start taking power. It made me think a lot about how caring for the less fortunate can cause a populace to align with their leader. Ryan really thought that he could get away with individuality of the people without any support, rather that ingenuity and intelligence would figure out all those problems for themselves. When in reality, the lower city compiled of regular citizens, fishermen, the working class were subjugated to exploitation by his free hand. And that vacuum from Ryan was filled by Fontaine's own prerogative and manipulation, seeing the opportunity to feast on the lower class by giving them what they needed. Housing, food, decency, but all in the guise of taking power from Ryan and not distributing it to the people who would eventually try to help him in that endeavor.
They come to Rapture thinking they're gonna be captains of industry. But they all forget that somebody's gotta scrub the toilets. What an angle they gave me. I hand these mugs a cart and a bowl of soup, and they give me their lives. Who needs an army when I got Fontaine's Home for the Poor?
It goes back to the person exploits a person. Ryan, Fontaine, Tenenbaum, Suchong, all these people exploited others in horrendous and abusive ways with the leniency of Rapture's core tenets. They sought their own ambitions at the cost of others, which makes them no different from each other. Whether you wear one color or another, it's your actions that determine the legacy. We do find the antidote, but it's only one vial, and we'll need another one. Unfortunately, it really has messed up our gene sequence, and now we have no control over the plasmids we have. I did like this since I saw plasmids I'd never picked up, one of which very much reminded me of System Shock 2. It also was a great 180 of gameplay mechanics, since I had to assume players heavily use plasmids and now they're just randomized, making the player adapt every minute or two. I still can't get over the texture work for the advertisements or posters within Rapture. If I didn't know when this game came out, I would say that most of the art design textures would be from at least 2020. It's incredible what they did, absolutely incredible. We get our next Diane audio tape and get more of an appreciation for the sub-narrative, since we've seen her lose her status and end up down here with the rest of the populace, opposed to being Andrew Ryan's girl. We also get this gene trader visual that I thought was fantastic. I'm sure not everyone was happy about plasmids and Adam. God forbid someone finds out how the stuff is made too, so this makes complete sense why there would be purists within the group. If you've ever played RimWorld, you know things will never go smoothly. We get the second dose of Antidote and figure out what happened to Suchong. Oh, that's him on the table, goddamn.
The protection bond is just not forming.
Papa Suchong?
Get away. maybe if I modify the genetic sequence to... Shush! The sequence to allow for... Get away, you filthy little shit! What? What are you doing? Get me back! Get back!
We get our Last Diane audio tape and it's come full circle. It shows off Ryan's follies and hubris and Fontaine's smart but corrupt plan. It's just perfect.
I asked him if he was going to lead the people in some kind of uprising against Ryan. He sighed and said, I am not a liberator. Liberators do not exist. These people will liberate themselves. I thought Andrew Ryan was a great man. I was a fool.
We try to reach Fontaine, who apparently has super strength with all the Atom at his disposal. It made me question if Ryan just didn't want to do the same to himself. Jack follows Fontaine up until he pulls a Dr. Steinman and barricades the door that, you guessed it, we need to find 3 to 5 items to open it up. But this time there's a cool twist. Jack is where the Big Daddies and Little Sisters were created, and the only way through the door is to trick a Little Sister into thinking we're a Big Daddy. The only way to do that is to put on the suit, pheromone up, and switch our vocal cords. Lived-in world doesn't cut it for this part. Not only was this awesome that we got to see these facilities, but witnessing what the Little Sisters went through under the eyes of Tenenbaum and other scientists will never leave me. Trauma begets trauma is my only way of rationalizing how Tenenbaum continued on this work. Also, how does this look so good? I hope it comes off on YouTube with the same quality, but this is 2007. 2007! It's just gorgeous. We make ourselves into a Big Daddy and start an escort mission. Christ, I know, I was disappointed by this too, but again, the visual level design made the section not hurt too much. I love eldritch horror in the deep sea, so looking out for specimens that they displayed along the walls was interesting. I did have a question on Fontaine laughing at us for believing that he had a wife and child. It's like a gotcha moment that doesn't make sense because you were controlling us, my dude. Also, I thought it was odd since doesn't Diane, enamored by Fontaine's love of the people, stay with him and that's the woman on the sub? If not, then why even have that moment of Atlas showing up? What did that accomplish? Anyways, we have our escort mission and I tried my best to protect the Little Sister since it seemed like you only got one. Weirdly enough though, even after Tenenbaum explains how important each individual one is, when mine died she goes, "Oh, another one's coming to help you," very nonchalantly. This is more on a gameplay aspect than story, but I was pretty baffled by not having it be a one and done save reload. And finally, we're at our target. The man who made us, the man who controlled us, and now will die by our choice. Tenenbaum has the Little Sister give us an Atom Harvester, saying it's the only way to kill Fontaine. And we get an actual good boss fight to end the game. It wasn't just the visuals which made it feel epic compared to anything else we had encountered, but the elemental resistances Fontaine uses were great, since it made the player again swap to multiple plasmids. Then having splicers running around while also Fontaine tries to kill us was exhilarating to say the least. Plus sticking this needle into him was some satisfying shit.
I had you built! I sent you topside! I called you back, showed you what you was capable of! Even that life you thought you had, that was something I dreamed up!
Before Fontaine can rip our head off, the Little Sisters save us, taking the last of the Atom away from his body. What happens if you don't save the Little Sisters? I forgot. How does Fontaine lose? Regardless, seeing these now saved Little Sisters stabbing a body screaming, "Kill him!" We might need a lot of therapy sessions when we get topside. I'll play this end cutscene out since I cry every time, and it's probably one of the most satisfying endings to a game.
They offered you this city. And you refused it. And what did you do instead? What I've come to expect of you. You saved them. You gave them the one thing that was stolen from them. A chance. A chance to learn. To find love. To live. And in the end, what was your reward? You never said. But I think I know. A family.
And that's BioShock. Holy frickin' moly, what an absolute juggernaut of a game. I cannot say this enough how well this game holds up 18 years after its release. The story, the setting, characters define my thinking of what video games could accomplish, and I'm excited to hear how the game influenced you. Let me know down below, and I look forward to our next descent into Rapture. I might need a small breather, but we'll get there. As always, talk to you next time.
In 10 years in this dump, I've come to accept a very low standard of life. But even at the bottom of this fish tank, a man must have standards. The pathetic Trudicule down at Morley Winery has started putting water to his terrible wine. Water! When I confronted him with this fact, he tells me, Pierre, this is not to worry. The water, she is distilled. It could be worse. I could take it right from the ocean.